Did you run into a slow up coming home? I heard there was a disabled car at 45th Street on 95. Was it on southbound or northbound?
Southbound, thank goodness.
Oh, good.
Yeah, I saw the tie-up of, oh, thank goodness.
Now, just after hearing that on the radio, I saw the ambulance and fire truck took off. Okay. They may be heading in that direction.
We can start whenever you want, even though it's 6 o'clock, it's still a budget workshop.
Okay, all right, thanks so much. Then we'll go ahead and we'll get started. Okay, thanks so much. So at this time, we're going to call the Town of Magonia Park Fiscal Year 2022-2023 General Utility Fund Budget Workshop into session. Roll call, please.
Mayor Alberry,
Here.
Vice Mayor Johnson,
I'm here.
and Councilmember McConnell.
Here. Thank you so much, and we do have a quorum. So at this time, of course, we're here to discuss the proposed budget, so we're going to turn the floor over to our Town Manager, Ken Metcalf.
Good evening, Mayor, Vice Mayor, and Councilman McConnell.
Good evening.
Just a couple of notes here. I don't sound too good. I'm not hearing too good tonight. Other than that, I'm in great shape. I have had a bit of a sinus infection, head cold. I have had 2 COVID tests since Wednesday, 4, 2 at home and 2 real ones. So I am negative. I wanted to make sure. And I actually did stay out on Thursday, but feeling much better, but not sounding too good. So I apologize in advance if I make you repeat something, or if I look at Sherry to have her repeat it. But anyway, Councilman McConnell was not here, but Mayor and Vice Mayor were here at the August 16th workshop. Mm-hmm. And left out of that workshop with a lot of information and a lot of marching orders, I think. Mm. And just to kind of run through a few things, when we finished that workshop, my understanding was that we were to leave the millage rate at the current rate, and we also talked about including some funds for a 15-passenger van, include funds for more youth programs, whether that be athletics or otherwise, include more funding for senior citizen programs and events, and we even talked about hiring a full-time recreation coordinator. So one thing to remember, when we leave the millage rate where it's at, coupling that with the property value increasing townwide of 9%, that right there leaves us with an additional $254,000 that we had not been factoring into the budget process previous. So tonight is kind of a new game, if you will. And I think I've talked to most of you individually a little bit, so some of this may not be too much of a surprise. So
I'll let the record reflect that Councilman Smith is joining the dais.
Hello.
Hello there, how are you doing?
Good.
Okay, thanks so much, Ken.
Okay. So when we take that $254,000 that is created when we leave the millage rate the same, and we also firm up the numbers that the state has given us. Okay, and we'll go through each one of these, but at our last meeting, these numbers weren't firmed up. So all of the projections that the state gives us, those have been firmed up, and we put it exactly as the state gives it to us. When we couple that with what the state gives us and what FPL is projecting as their revenue increase for the town, and what Waste Management is projecting for their increase for the town, that gives us another $75,000. Okay, so you take the $75,000 with the 254, you now have 329,000 that we didn't have previously that we were factoring in. Okay. So we do have additional revenue, and big question is, where do we put it? So my proposal, and it is included in your spreadsheets tonight, we'll go through this, but I'll just kind of run through a few things item by item from my notes. In the proposal tonight, and it is a balanced budget for both funds, general fund and for utility fund, we've included a 4% cost of living adjustment for all full-time employees, plus the increase that the benefits will cause to that. Now, the salaries, the increase in salaries alone will be about $20,000, and the benefits would be, and I'm rounding up, I'm not rounding down, rounding up, another $10,000. So an additional $30,000 to the budget. Previously, we were showing lump sum merit payment, and that was a total of $24,000. So you take out the 24, you add the 30, you have a net increase of $6,000. The next thing that we did, when we were showing the revenue, we were showing $193,000 in contingency to balance the budget. We have removed that completely. So the contingency on revenue is zeroed out completely. Okay. We did add the full-time recreation coordinator at $45,000. We increased the budget by $10,000 to get the van. Now, let me explain that. We had two vehicles budgeted at $35,000 each. We removed one of them and put the van in at $45,000, so that's a net increase of $10,000. Okay. We added an additional $12,000, I'm rounding up, for senior programs and events. We put in an additional $20,000 for youth programs, events, athletics, what have you. We increased the planner, that's NILSA, that line item by $5,000, and the rationale there is we're thinking at some point in the upcoming fiscal year that we're going to have to do a comp plan text amendment as it relates to the High Life Fronton property. So we need to increase that line item a little bit. Even if that's paid for by the applicant, we're still going to have to pay it on the front end. So that line item's increased. Van had requested that we beef up the storm drain cleaning by $10,000, so we did that, giving that a total of $40,000. We did add, because I had a couple of council members approach me, and not in a demanding way or anything, very informal way, talking about the stipends for council. So we did increase that overall by $12,000, which equates to $200 a month per council member. Okay. And we did do, I'm just going to call this a placeholder because you have to decide this at some point. We put just a placeholder of $5,000 increase in the manager's salary. You'll determine that as we move forward, but that is in there now just in case, okay? Any questions so far?
Yes.
Yes, sir.
Let's go back to the stipend. So I'm kind of made aware the stipend is being increased to $12,000. And we're budget overall, so that impacts council members, right? With that being said, what about the board adjustment personnel?
So
Is that going to impact?
they're going to go from they get $75 per meeting. That's gonna go up to $100 per meeting. And we actually had talked about that last year, we just didn't implement it. I'm not sure we actually approved that, but that was a discussion. So that is included in here as well.
Just out of curiosity, how many board adjustment meetings we have a year? I know that depends on what's on the books, but on average, how many board adjustment meetings do we have in this?
Annually,
Yes, sir.
5 or 6 at the most.
More like 2 or 3.
Okay, so,
Theirs is different because they're a different board, but that's the only board that they have. And their meetings usually last about 15 minutes. If, when they go out to a site, you might add another 10 minutes to that. So overall, compared to the governing body, the Board of Adjustment may be spending half an hour of time, including phone calls or questions that they may have, pretty much.
and so it's going from a whopping 75 to $100 for a session, a meeting that they attend.
I'm sorry.
They're going from board adjustment candidates going from $75 to $100 for a 15-minute meeting. Okay.
And we've had a couple of the members request that for a few years, and we just didn't
To go up to 100.
do anything with it.
Right. Just before we proceed, let the record reflect that Councilwoman Webb has joined the dais.
Sorry I'm late. Thank you for having me.
And for their benefit, Mayor, if I can, just to let Councilman Smith and Councilmember Buchanan Webb know, I'm not hearing too well tonight, so if I walk up to you, that's why, so I apologize. Now, if there's no questions on what I just walked through, we'll go straight to the spreadsheets.
Before we do, one of the things, and I try and be consistent, one of the things that I do is just ask for justification for whenever we're doing increases in any category, including salaries and stipends as well. What is the average? Sorry about that. Just taking the mask off. So what would be the average increase for staff in terms of dollars? Just an educated amount of staff can assist. In terms of if we were to do a 4% COLA, that would equate to, on average,
That's about $2,500 on average. If you did it, an increase across the board, that would be about $2,500.
Okay.
As opposed to 4% on top of every salary. If you want to just take the amount and divvy it up, that would be about $2,500.
okay. Because what we're looking at, and the import of that question was simply this, that if indeed we're doing, if we were, for instance, and I just needed to know, and I'll crunch some numbers well, and I won't hold the process up, that if indeed it equated to about, let's just say for conversation, 1,500 for staff, then what would be the justification for a little bit more than that for legislative body?
Justification for,
If indeed, that would have been my question. I'm going to crunch the numbers, because what we're looking at, and I try and be fair and equitable, whether that fair and equitable means nothing for anybody or something for everybody. I'm trying to be consistent. So I won't hold the process up, but if indeed we're saying it's over 25 on average,
right,
as long as it's, I guess what I'm saying is that it should not be less than what any proposal for the legislative body is, and it's not. Correct? Okay. All righty. No, I'll do the numbers while we proceed, so I don't want to hold it up.
all right. So on your spreadsheets, take line 1 on page 1 where it says general fund. Line 1, that's the ad valorem taxes, and that was a big conversation at the last budget workshop. So what we had previously that we were working with was the $2,347,000. When we leave it at 9.9 mills, that now comes up to $2,601,319. Okay, quite an increase. Okay, and that is budgeting 96% of the total that would be coming in. And as we go through some of these, you can see the notes in the comment section. You see a lot of the notes say predetermined by the state of Florida based on population, and that's true. That's how a lot of these things are divvied up. So line number 3, local option fuel tax. You see that for the approved budget for this current year was $43,999. And again, this is what the state tells us. The state's projection for next year, next budget year, is $46,442. Okay, if you go down to line 5, discretionary sales tax, this current year, the budget, what the state gave us was $162,000. You can see to the column to the left, we've already collected, we've already been given $179,000. And our projected amount, proposed budget, is $169,000. So that's going to be an increase of $7,000 for what we budgeted last year. On the FPL utility tax, and this is what FPL is giving us. We budgeted this year $280,000. We've collected, with 2 months to go, $265,000. And for next year, when I know y'all not going to like this, I don't like it, but when the rates increase, that revenue coming back to us is going to jump by about $30,000, $310,000. Okay. Line 7, Mangonia Park Utilities tax. This current year, we budgeted $31,000. We've already transferred over $20,000. We're budgeting $34,000. And for, again, these are numbers that the state gives us, okay? And the gas utility tax this current year was $10,000. We've collected $13,000 already. We're budgeting $13,000. Is everybody following? I hope I haven't. Line number 9 is a good one. Local communication service tax, and you just approved this at your last council meeting. We had budgeted for this year $69,878. We've already collected $70,472. The state is telling us we can expect $82,000. Business BTRs for Mangonia Park, we had budgeted $55,000. Anytime we have the ability to budget instead of the state telling us, we go conservative. And we went conservative this year, and as you can see to the left, we budgeted $55,000. We've collected $68,000. We're going to budget $60,000. Okay, and then Palm Beach County, I'll skip over that. Building permit fees, way conservative this year. Councilman Smith beat me down a little bit for this, but we budgeted $75,000, and of course with the new development, and a few others as well, we've collected $670,000. We're totally not expecting to see that, but we can probably look forward to around $80,000. The FPL franchise fees, this will go up again with the new rates. We budgeted $195,000. We've already collected $211,000. And this is the numbers they're giving us, $224,000. Waste Management, at your September 20th meeting, Waste Management's going to come and ask for council to approve a rate increase. And if that rate increase goes through, the projected number, this is conservative, would be $118,000. You can see we budgeted $90,000 for this year. We've already collected $138,000. We may not get much more than that, but that's, you can see we did well there.
Quick
Em-
question. Is there a bid for another company?
Not
No, you're
yet.
under a
We're
franchise
still,
agreement.
Huh?
You're under a franchise agreement with Waste Management. They usually last about 5 years.
When does this one expire?
I don't know off the top of my head when it's up. But the CPI or the rate increase from Waste Management, I think you're currently paying $12 and something per month, which would be $36 and something every quarter, and it would go up a couple of dollars per month, like I'm going to say to $13 and some odd cents or $14 and some odd cents for Waste Management. So you might go from $36 to possibly $41 or $42 every 3 months.
So I asked because I called, for some reason I have issues with them every quarter for my bill. And then I will call, either they can't find my name or I'm in another system or it's always some. So the lady got snotty with me, thought they hung up the phone and they said, pretty soon we won't be serving them anyways. So I'm like, is there a
That they don't,
contract?
I'm sorry, I didn't hear the last part.
Pretty soon they won't be servicing us.
We get that a lot of people contact Waste Management customer service and they don't know that the regular representative doesn't know that they service Mangonia Park because they think it's West Palm Beach when they pull up the address. And West Palm Beach, of course, has its own garbage service, so they'll tell you, no, you have to demand that they know that they do service the town of Mangonia Park.
And then they
That's
send you
the
to collections when you don't pay your bill, and it's, since I've lived there, it's been a continuous issue with me.
You can notify us. We tell a lot of residents that have that problem, they'll call, and we just notify us, and then Ken has a contact person for Waste Management,
Okay.
because Ellen is no longer there, correct?
Mm-mm.
So we usually send them an email or call them ourselves about the customer's name and address, and it's usually resolved that way.
Okay.
And we can put something in the newsletter the next time also.
okay.
Sorry.
Impact fees for the town. We went way conservative this year with $10,000, and of course, basically all of this is the Meritage project. We've collected $350,000. We're not going to see that next year, but we can probably expect around $15,000. I think that's a safe projection. And then for the county, that's a little bit hard to predict, but we're staying conservative there at around $10,000. The municipal revenue sharing, this is another thing that the state decides. They're telling us that we can expect $82,000 next year. And so far, we've only collected 54. They've only sent us 54,000 out of 71. But that 82 is their number. Going to line 19, the half-cent sales tax, also determined by the state. You can see this one really jumps up. We budgeted $172,000. We've already been sent $190,000. They are projecting, they being the state, $194,000. Okay. Zoning fees, again, we probably won't see the $19,000 that we've collected, but we probably will go up from the $5,000 that we budgeted this year. There's a lot of, we've had one code enforcement officer that's been able to get out and get some outside storage renewals and those kind of things. So we expect that to stay up a little bit. Okay. Fire inspections, we expect that to go to $10,000. You can see we've collected $13,000 so far. The surcharge amount, we're gonna leave that the same at 500. I think that 16,000 may be skewed a little bit, but maybe that's more related to the Meritage project. Alarm permit fees, we're gonna stay steady with 6,000, even though that went up to 13,000 so far this year. Fines and forfeitures, can't say that. We're gonna keep it the same at 8,000. Parking citations, we're gonna go down 1,000 to 3,000. Local ordinances, and this is where you have lanes that are settled and whatnot. You've had a few people approach you at council meetings talking about, can I get this lane reduced somewhat? We've budgeted 10,000 this year and for next year, but you can see we've collected 55,000 for this year. Okay.
Can I quit? Does this go for the elderly also?
Does that go for
You
the,
said they're gonna be asking to reduce their liens?
who?
You said someone might come before us.
No, they have previously.
Oh.
We've had people come. I'm going to go down to line 33, community center rental. We budgeted 15,000 for this year, and we're at 26,000 already. We're going to put that, I think 23,000 is going to be a safe number. Same thing for the park. We budgeted 7,000. We've collected 8,000. So we're thinking that 10,000 will be safe there. Contributions, usually this is mostly for the toy drive. This coming fiscal year, we'll see some money come in for the gala that we're going to have and for the festival, the Heritage Festival. So that amount could be as much as 25,000. And that's also for our back-to-school bash that we just had a few weeks ago and whatnot. Miscellaneous income, we've had a lot of that come in, 39,000. That's past due BTRs. We're going to stay at 5,000 though, because we probably have collected most of the past dues. Miscellaneous income, that's your billboard rentals. That's the percentage we get back from that. We budgeted 35. We've already collected 40, so we're going to put it at 39. And that's the highlights there. Lien searches, we budgeted 1,000 for this year. We've collected about 8,300. Questions on the revenue?
Yes, just in terms of categories, we'll go back to line 36, a miscellaneous income. In that category, at least in the comments, we have more past BTRs, and we do have a line item for BTR. So the question would be, why isn't it reflected there? Line 36, right, the comment section states that past BTRs, so that reflects in that category. But we do have a category for our BTRs, and so the question would be,
We're just trying to show a separation between what our normal collection would be and what's past due.
okay, so more descriptively, this would be outside of this fiscal year. Is what
Right,
the intent is.
past years.
Okay.
Other questions on revenue? Are you packed?
So moved that we're adjourned, is that what you asked?
Okay, tomorrow. For how long?
7 days.
All righty, I can.
Okay, so going into the expenditure side, jumping right into legislative, and I'll try to be a lot a lot more brief on this part than I was revenue. You see the, under salaries, you see the jump from 72 to 84. We spoke about that. That's the increase. That's the big thing there. I think we did up the seminars and conferences. It seems like we're going a little bit more than what we normally do. That's line 49. It says conferences and seminars going from 3,500 to 5,000. Flipping over to page 2.
Before we begin, and sort of waited for more information to when we got to this category. So now the justification for the increase on the legislative side, line 40. No, as part of the conversation, when was the last time it was increased?
There was an increase this current year from, so I think part of the conversation from last year was to get us to 1,500 eventually. So it went from 1,000, Sherry, correct me if I'm wrong, 1,000 the previous year to 1,200 this year. And so going to 1,400 this coming year, and at some point, at your discretion, taking that to 1,500. So, and like I said, I did have a couple of council members approach me very informally, not demanding or anything, so felt like that could at least be a discussion among council, if you so desired.
And the justification is, for part of that, over the years has been you've not had the development that you have now. And you're taking hits from your constituents, not that you don't have to, but all of the details with the Meritage Report as an example, and then what's coming forward with even Tiffany and the Highline and SROA before it was BB Enterprises. Just different, you're spending more time technically studying and looking at it from all angles.
I don't mind saying, I'm asking for more of your time. You know, I call you just about every other week asking for time. So, you know, that would be something you could say.
Okay. Now, generally what happens is when we're talking increases in salaries for other, particular administration, which is normally where it is, outside of this, we do have discussion. Is there any discussion as it relates to this from a council? This particular request, proposal?
What is your question?
The question is in terms of whenever we've had conversation about increases, whether it be bonuses, merit, whatever it is, for our administrative staff, we've had conversation. So similarly, in terms of just the fairness of it, or just kind of understanding why we're doing this, is there a conversation, input from council for this particular increase?
I'll just say that I'm comfortable with what has been determined, a possible increase. Being that the previous discussion was that we gradually improve the amount as the revenue showed that we could make those moves. So now that we see we've got the revenue, I think that's reasonable.
Okay.
I so moved that we approve it.
Okay, we're not at approval point yet, but put it in if you have some input.
I so moved that we discuss, because a little bit more about the stipend. And as long as we don't get ridiculous with it like other municipalities, I'm not throwing them on the bus, but some municipalities are in the 30s and 40s, so I don't see justification in that part for the work we do. But if we're going to discuss or have a discussion about the stipend, then in fairness, we, as the mayor brought to attention, we really truly have to justify why we want to go from 10 to 12 or 12 to 14, if I'm looking at the numbers right. So that I really want to pay attention to the justification of, because if you're going to increase, then it's got to be solid justification. I don't just want to jump on the notion that yes, I'm on board. It's got to be justified, you know, and in fairness. And I'm giving my opinion up here, but that's coming from my opinion in my heart. we're doing a job, we're elected officials, we're servants. And I don't want to make it a career path, but we are here to do a service. And I guess the justification is projects like Meritage and potential development of the Highline Fronton on 54 acres. So it does require us as a government body sitting down here, putting in the time, rolling up our sleeves, legal and everything, as staff. So I guess that would be the justification behind this increase. So for the longest we wasn't developing anything. And now there's a couple things that are in play. Marriage is being one of them. And I'm not talking just a Dunkin' Donut or a 7-Eleven, but it's some things that are going on. So I guess if anybody would question, that would be the justification.
Right, and then too, you know, when you kind of look at it, one of the things that, and I think when you look particularly nationally, it becomes very distasteful to the constituency, and I'm speaking nationally, when congressional folks and senators get these raises every year and don't do their job. I'm not talking about us, and don't do their jobs, and then the American people suffer, becomes a little distasteful because there's no justification with that. You got a raise, right, but we're getting more cost shifted to us, and more responsibility, financial responsibility shifted to us. And we say it all the time as citizens, right? What are they doing up there, right? And so, but they don't give us justification. I just think that we owe our citizens a justification if we're going to be increasing. I'm not saying, you know, yay, nay, whatever thing in it. I'm just saying, what's our justification? If someone were to come in and say, well, I heard they got a $200 a month increase, for what? What would we say? Councilman Smith started saying, you know, some things, well, because of this and this and this. I just like for the record to reflect that we have a reason for what we're doing. And if we don't have a reason why we're doing, whatever it is we're going to be doing. So.
I would say cost of living would be the main one. Most importantly, since COVID, a lot has changed. Not only are you spending more, gas price has gone up, and other municipality has done other things for other council members. And I think I was trying to figure out who was the last set of municipality was to get raised and how much, but I didn't get around to doing it. That's what I wanted to bring as a backup and the reason why they got theirs. But then when I tried to reach out, I didn't get a response. But if I were to leave anything, I would just say cost of living has increased. And there are nights when we leave out here at 10 o'clock at night without pizza.
Without pizza. I do see an increase in the time that we've spent reviewing projects because we have had more projects to review over the past year. And as they continue to develop, you know, we will be spending more time. So I think that's reasonable to make that assessment that we will be spending more time worthy of reconciliation.
Okay.
Not to mention the phone calls I get at 12 o'clock and 1 o'clock in the mornings.
Okay. All righty. So if that's what we have, for the record, I just want the record to reflect if we're doing something, why are we doing it?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Anything else on it? Okay.
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 Oh, I wanted to say something else.
Mhm.
So I believe while we're getting an increase, yes, the casework is going to be bigger and heavier, but there's so many different things that's available out there to us that we don't go to. And I went to the league the other day, and I was seeing the different events and the different things that you can learn from. Most importantly, the little trainings and conferences that they do. So I don't think how do I say this? I'm sorry, I'm in airplane mode,
You're
but
in Dubai.
I was just thinking more if we were to start going to these events more, where we can not that we're not educated, but it would teach us. I just know that when I go there, what it does for me. And then representation matters. Like when we went somewhere the other day, we were the only one from Palm Beach there. And I believe that the more we go out there, the more recognition. And then a lot of individuals they don't know who Mangonia Park is. So when you go there, be like, Mangonia Park, I'm like, where's that? Magnolia? I'm like, no, Mangonia Park. And it was like, where's that? So then you have to map it out and try to draw it out. And but that's not West Palm Beach. No, it's Mangonia Park. And then they themselves learn something new.
Okay.
So just making ourselves more available for events and functions.
Okay, all righty. Okay.
And again, we did raise the line item for conference and seminars for that very reason, so. Okay. On page 2, just going to kind of run through some things here. Some things have not changed. I'll skip over that, but we're free to talk about any of it. Again, on line 53, kind of embarrassing for me to talk about, but just so you'll have a placeholder until you decide if the manager gets an increase or not. Either way, I'm coming to work the next day, but that number is just, I am. That number is just a placeholder if you want to consider any raise at all, any COLA or whatnot. Line 54, the salaries for the rest of admin, if you will, full-time. This is inclusive of the 4% cost of living increase that we talked about, okay? Line 55, that's our intern and our summer reading program line item, salaries anyway. And then you get into some of the benefits that have increased because of the pay increase. And you also have a projected, or at least a budgeted 20% increase in health insurance. And again, our broker is telling us they're seeing 10 to 15%, but we went ahead and, as we do typically every year, Sherry, right? We pretty much say 20%, and then we'll see what happens with it. Anything you need to say on that, Sherry?
On the percentage
On
for,
the health coverage?
no, it's usually, I think you got confirmation that it would be at least 20. It ranges anywhere from 15 to 25.
Right, and the numbers they're seeing so far, 10 to 15, we put 20. Obviously, if it's more than that, we'll be coming back and talking about it. And obviously, you approve that every year. Our broker, they come before you and talk about that. All right.
Now, before we move on, just to make sure that we sort of crystallize and sort of confirm or firm up line 54, we talked last time about the code enforcement, some different types of configuration. I just want to make sure that where we left off is that the code enforcement officer, whomever he or she will be, that's full-time.
Yes.
That's what's being budgeted here.
And it's in that line item.
Okay. Okay, all right, thanks.
Can I be up here and be a code enforcement officer also?
Yeah.
What's that?
Can I sit up here and still apply for that position?
You'd have to resign first.
Only if you're in another, there is a city where you can probably do that, but not here. Where it's been done, but not here.
Babies need me.
Want to point your attention to line 69, professional services. 69?
Yeah, before you go there, can I ask about 55?
Absolutely.
Since we have increases in salaries, do you think we can have an increase in interns?
That's a council discussion.
We did
We did, this is an
increase in the
increase,
intern, 15.
this is an increase that's listed here, okay. Just wanted to make
That
sure.
number is abundant.
So, Right, and we're
For an
going from,
intern.
so we're going from
And it
$12
shows
an
the
hour.
hours.
Yeah.
So we're going from 12 to $15 an hour. That's what we're doing.
I didn't hear the question.
13, current.
12 or?
It's
12
currently
and then
12, and so we're going from 12 to
No,
15.
increased it to 15. With this budget year.
Oh, with this,
This budget, new budget year shows 15.
okay.
Right, but I think, and correct me if I'm mistaken, I think, Vice Mayor, correct me if I'm mistake, what I think you were doing, what we're seeing is what we budgeted last year, fiscal year was 22, and we're budgeting 22. So we're gonna stay within the 22, it's just that we're increasing the hourly rate that we're gonna give to that person.
Because
We don't
last
use
year-
that many hours, and,
last year, your hours were more than the 1,040 hours per week, which was part-time, and it went all the way, including, it was year-round. This one's year-round too, but it's only at the part-time rate, and then the summer internship is only for 500 hours. And that's not, I don't want to say embellishing, but maxing out the summer internship at 40 hours a week for 6 to 8 weeks, I believe.
Plus, if you-
And sometimes, and a little longer.
I do understand that we had COVID and we did not have
Correct.
office staff for 2 summers. I mean, intern and summer camp for 2 summers, so this would be why the budget figure remains the same. That's what I just want to clarify.
Because we didn't do the reading camp last year.
Right, but we had increased the budget but did not spend because we didn't have the reading camp. Okay, just want to clarify that.
And plus, if I could add this, if you do approve for that full-time recreation program coordinator, they're gonna be heavily involved with the reading program too.
Good. Thank you.
no, so that the budget is reflective of where we are. Before we move, so in 55, we haven't expended anything at all? Or are we calling the person that we, or a position that we use in the office?
Yeah,
Um,
yes, sir.
okay.
That's in there, but the actual amount's not reflected,
Right,
so.
okay, I
I
mean,
would say
year to date, it's not
less
reflected.
than, 8,000.
Okay.
Oh, so there has been expenditure for, in this past year for
Office
office intern, but that would be an $8,000 amount or
Yes,
less,
sir.
or less, okay.
All right,
It just
so,
has not been recorded here.
okay, so,
Not sure why that happened, but yes.
okay, so
What
we'll,
line item are we referencing?
55.
55.
55?
you know, the actual amount to date, so what we can do is on the next budget
The
submittal.
15 would be the $15 an
No,
hour.
that's at the point we're saying it had,
Amount paid,
there was some
paid out to date.
expenditure.
22,000?
There was expenditure, but it's nothing listed here, that's what we're saying. That's what my
Right,
question is.
we've had
Oh,
the
then
office.
it just hasn't been updated in the correct category.
Okay, that's my question.
Okay.
So
So
that
we'll-
means it's probably $14,000 left.
It's probably under the 236, 327
Okay.
category.
Right, so
Somewhere.
just for certainty, can we just put a red pin on?
We'll make sure
and
it's
make
correct.
Okay,
Thank
so
you.
for the next submittal we get it, we'll have that.
Absolutely.
Okay.
I'm gonna try to give you a number here in
Sorry.
just a second.
And if not, at the next submittal, we just want to make sure it's reflected.
Bear with me a second and I'll pull that number up. Of this good information Howard provides me every week.
Okay, and while we're waiting, if you want to peruse the rest of this section while we're waiting for that, when we get to certain line items, if you have any questions.
Mr. Mayor, we have actually spent a little bit over 9,000 of the 22.
Okay. Okay, thanks. We'll just do a pen and ink for now.
That position was hired later.
Okay.
Let's drop down to, if there's nothing else on salaries or anything with the
You were trying to go to 59, I thought.
69?
590,
Five.
retirement.
No, he said 69. But if you have a question on 59.
Yeah, it's automatic.
Well, let's have a question.
I think that's just built in based upon the salary. That's with the FSR now, and so that's baked in the cake.
FRS is mandated by state, it's not anything that we are doing. And their budget starts July 1st, whereas ours starts in October. So for 9 months, if you calculate it down to the penny, you have to take the salaries and divide them by 12 months. And then for 9 months, you get your, whatever the percentage is for the state-based percentage. And then the other 3 months for the projected, which we never know. We could just take a look at the history of it. And hope for the least amount as a governing body and the best amount as an employee. But that's how that's calculated. So that 13.41% that you see is a projected for those 3 months. But in actuality, last year, fiscal year, the state rate was 10.82%. And then in July of last year, because that's their budget, it moved for those 3 months for us, July, August, September, to 11.91%. Or, I'm sorry, it was 10 point something percent, it moved to 10.82, and now this year in July, it's 11.91. So it went from 10.82 those last 3 months to 11.91, or whatever, however off that is. And that's where we get that from. We never know what they're gonna do. I mean, 2 of you are FRS recipients, so even though the employee only gives 3% of their salary, the state mandates whatever it is they mandate for regular employees as well as senior management.
All right. All right. Let's drop down. If we can come back or stay here, but let's go down to line 69, professional services. Most of our lobbyist money is paid out of general fund. We do charge $15,000 to the utility fund, so they get 48. Now the additional 20,000, if you will, on this. If y'all may remember sometime back, and it may be before Councilwoman Buchanan-Webb came back on, the attorney talked to council. I think even Nilsa came and did a presentation about the need to have an impact fee study. And the way that it's going with the state right now, current administration, they're really putting some limitations on this. So if you're going to raise above 25% your impact fees, then you have to do a study. And, you know, those things are never cheap. So we're looking around now I've got some ideas from MIDI, and we're looking at that. Now, the thing the state is telling us, you cannot implement your new impact fees until 1 year after you've adopted your study. So this is something we do need to get on pretty quickly. And I think the idea would be, I think y'all know it already, is to get this in place before the highlight has an application, you know, submitted. Okay, so that's the increase there. Everything else is pretty much stayed the same. We went up a little bit on line 76, repairs and maintenance. I'm sorry, liability insurance. Repairs and maintenance stayed the same. This coming year is an election cycle, so we put in money for that and with the possibility of a runoff. So that's line 80. Office supplies, we went up $100 because we've already exceeded our budget for this year. And then we do have some membership dues and, of course, subscriptions that we pay annually. We did put a little bit of money in for landscaping improvements to Town Hall. And, of course, line 87 This is where we get into the small vehicle, the 15-passenger van, and some IT improvements that Mr. Cato wants to implement in the coming year with our servers and whatnot. So that's where that comes into play. Now, I know it's listed under small equipment, but that's about the only place for that. Questions?
Yes, since I wasn't here for this passenger van, what is the usage? Is this for our director we're gonna hire, or what?
That's for, taking youth and seniors on trips. We took the youth council to Hollywood a few weeks ago, and we just drove our individual vehicles. And so I guess the idea would be that doing more programs and events, being able to pick up people, taking them, coming to play. Certainly that would have helped out a little bit anyway when we went to the boxing event.
Mhm.
That would have satisfied all of that.
Yes, that's a good point, because there were young people on my street who said they didn't have a way to get to the town hall to get on the bus, who said they wanted to come. If I had known, I would have let you know, but they didn't tell me till afterwards. But if I know we have a van, when I invite them, I could tell them, if you don't have transportation, we do have a van available to pick you up.
And if we are doing things like ball teams outside of the PAL League, outside of that, then this might be a good way to get them to the games and whatnot. They do have out-of-town games.
Would this mean also we need to have additional insurance?
Yes.
Has that been recorded?
No, well, they're going up a certain percentage too, but it hasn't been added yet.
Okay.
You could be looking at potentially $6,000. As long as you don't include an aftercare program in your makeup as a municipality, it won't be that significant, or shouldn't be. It's only when you have those kind of programs that it costs.
And the van now, so who's gonna be driving the van? Anybody?
Probably your new person, your rec
Your
program
rec.
coordinator. And it could be me, could be Sherry, maybe even Howard, throw him into action.
Road trip.
To McConnell's question, what we'll do is we'll check with since we don't have risk management as a department, that we speak with our whomever we use for that purpose to find out if we're getting normally a 12-passenger van or just a regular 7-passenger, whatever it is.
15 here.
Right, so just whatever van that is, does it require a chauffeur's license? So that we can, and I'm sure this is already part of the planning, that if it's just general use by the legislative body to go to functions, and is there a requirement as it relates to licensing?
Right.
And if it's just, no, all they have to do is have their regular, then anybody can drive it for different functions.
Pretty sure the 15-passenger doesn't require anything outside of the norm, but I'll double check it.
Right. And also checking the insurance base. I'm only referencing that because with the use of 15-passenger vehicles for our church events, the insurance of the conference would not insure 15-passenger because of the risk factors, but they would insure a 12, 13-passenger. So you may.
That's true too. We went through the same thing at our church.
So you might need to consider that,
I'll find out.
Right. Now, just to sort of clarify, because of the organization's risk management decided because of reported accidents and all of that they would, but separate aside from the government. Right, but now, if we think that, it was a specific kind of van as well because of the axle, the way that it was built, right? Just the way that that particular, I won't say it on the record, but the way that particular van was built, lent to tilting and curb when you're in a certain way, on a curb, you can tilt over. And
Right.
so it was to stay away from that one, you know, but, the typical, that old, that old van that has the, you know, not the fancy looking one, the Dodge, I was trying to pull one up.
High top.
Yeah, just a regular old looking van from back in the day. I mean, they update it every year, but just that regular old van that you see, churches and everybody else have, that van, it doesn't tilt over. It's those high tops, you
Right.
know, with all that storage up top and all that kind of stuff, which is.
Yeah, they were tipping over.
Yeah, some of the new vans, the big van, well, Dodge has one, Mercedes has one,
Yeah.
Ford has one.
Yeah,
They all have them, but they're work vans. So they're loaded heavy, so they're not apt to turn over like a passenger van. So, if you're worried about that, then you probably need to look at something that has dual wheels on the back. So that, you can pretty much eliminate the turning over.
Like the Ford Econoline, you know, just the regular old vans like this. They don't have a history of turning over. Yeah, but it's
No, they
the
don't.
high tops, the one,
Yeah.
that are, no, those you need the dualies. You need the 2 wheels on. Just a regular old, like the Dodge Econoline, yeah. Right, but the ones that have been turning over, or was turning over, maybe they've made some adjustments from an engineering standpoint, that they put more weight or something. I'm not an engineer, but, yeah, but those, they just keep going. Okay, but when we get there, we can kind of.
Are we looking specific on what type of van that we're trying to get? I mean, 12 and 15, and I guess you guys talk about the Sprinter vans, Sprinters.
Sprinters is what they. Yeah,
The
Sprinters
Dodge,
are the ones.
Mercedes.
Yeah, that's what they were.
They're
referring
Sprinter
to.
vans, Sprinters.
But I would imagine, you know, that once we're looking at the budget at this point, and within the budget, you know, what
Yes.
would be the best, efficient use of the dollars. So, yeah, so council make a recommendation in terms of what we think is the best van, you know, for the best bang for the buck, so to speak. Okay.
Yeah, the other problem with a van, when you're hauling that many people, they need to stay in their seats. They can't be running around in the van when you're going 60 miles an hour down I-95 or something. And you see that a lot, and
We're gonna
A
put you
lot
on
of
the
that.
van with us.
a lot of that is, the driver. Because, I mean, you see it on I-95 all the time because, I mean, I'm not picking on a particular race, but the Spanish have a really bad problem that they got a 15-seat van and they got 30 people in it.
No, we won't be doing that.
So, and then they move around inside and, that, when you're driving down the road and somebody's moving around, it's like driving a truck with water tank on the back, it's whoosh, whoosh, you're doing this down the road. So, sometimes you can't, sometimes if you have teenagers, 18, stuff like that, it's hard to control them when they're in a van.
We'll let them walk. I mean,
So you stop the van and say,
I'm gonna say,
Well-
kids, sit down and be quiet. I'm trying to text.
But one thing about the 13-seater, you don't have room for walking around. There's just room for seats.
Yeah.
So that's one thing you don't have to worry about in a 13-seater.
Get in and sit
Or
down.
where's those like the school bus type of van you see? The bigger ones? Like what the school district uses?
Well, yeah, like the daycares and so forth use those vans that we're talking about, that they have space to walk around. But we're talking about they're more like SUVs.
the Ford Econoline
Yeah,
don't have that.
13-seater SUVs, you can't walk around in them, you have to sit in your seat in order to be a passenger.
just food for thought.
Those are great points, Freddie.
Yeah.
Safety, safety, safety,
And they've
safety.
been around forever.
Yeah, not particularly that one, but that's the
Van.
van. Something
No,
similar
that's
to
one
that.
van.
Yeah, you gotta get in and sit down, there's no movement. Right, okay, and then again, we'll have the opportunity of just kind of take a look around and go online and, and start making recommendations for what type of, a van and car, right?
Howard.
And, yeah, and the suggestion, as I mentioned for the car, just in 10 seconds, is we want to take the responsibility and the liability away from the town, because when you have staff using their personal cars running all over for town purposes, we want to eliminate that. And then when we have functions as well, we jump in the car and go. So,
And then we are growing, so.
okay. All righty?
All right.
Yep. Okay.
And that really concludes the admin budget. Jumping down to police, we are still staring at that 2% increase, which is in consideration that we haven't really had an increase in 4 years, so that's not too bad. The mayor was able to negotiate that down from 3 to 2, so we did save a little bit of money there. On the fire service.
I'm sorry,
I'm
so
sorry.
what were we saying for, what were we saying for legislative salaries again? We need to revisit that, so. No, I'm just kidding. Okay. It's called performance-based budgeting, so add a little bit more, I save some money. No, I'm just kidding. I'm sorry, go right ahead, Ken.
That's right.
Okay.
On
Alright, so
the,
we're, police, okay.
On the fire department, so the actual number for this current year, I don't want to confuse everyone. We budgeted 351, the actual number is going to be 345, the way that'll turn out. So the actual number is 345 instead of 351. So I don't think it's going to happen at this point. If they don't get to us before the first budget hearing, then everything's off. But if they were to give us an increase, it would be somewhere between 3, 4, 5%, and that's what we budgeted. We budgeted a 5% increase, but that may not hold up. Okay. Going to page 3, and that's your building engineers and code enforcement. Now again, code enforcement, the full-time officer is in the admin budget. Our contracted, paid by the county grant is in this budget. Looking at what it says attorney fees, that's really your special magistrate. We're staying at 3,000. Engineering services, that's Mr. Van Cott, staying at 32,000. We haven't used 20,000 of that yet, but we are budgeting the same amount. Litigation, attorneys, we put 3,000 in there, even though we haven't used any this year. The building official, we anticipate there's going to be a large amount of meritage that has to come into play in the next budget year. So we did increase that item by 10,000. All right. Code enforcement officer, you see those numbers go down. Again, the one position, Mr. Major, is paid through the county grant. Permits and fees, we under budgeted a little bit, so we're going to go up a couple of thousand there. Postage, we need to go up on that because we're doing more code enforcement, more certified letters, and that takes more money, of course. Board of Adjustment, so there's your, it doesn't show overall in the increase, but we do make a note that it's going from $75 to $100.
In postage, there was expenditure this year, but you just don't have it listed.
Which one now?
Postage, there's nothing listed.
Line 98.
There was some,
I think that's all been captured in the administration budget, I think.
The building, okay.
What line item is it?
That is, 420 postage.
For what, line
Line-
number,
line
98?
98, yeah.
For code enforcement?
Mhm.
We budgeted $1,000, right?
Yes. We're not showing any.
Oh, how much we spent.
Mhm.
That comes from, overage, crossing over fiscal years. So, for instance, we didn't have much code enforcement for fiscal year 1920 or 2021, and crossed over to 21-22, where we may have ordered enough in 2021, and now we've used it all up for 21-22. It was from a previous fiscal year.
Mhm.
So when you see that it's not there, it's because it's from crossover fiscal years. And we didn't have to replace any postage. We used what we had.
Okay.
Okay.
Sufficient.
Other questions on building and engineering?
Yes, go back to, 97,
What line item number?
97.
97?
We had
Oh,
a
the same
58,
one?
we had a 5,800 approved for $4,000, and we had added 6,000, kind of explain it a little better. 97,
For NPDES.
please.
Right.
I'm looking at those numbers.
Our permit fees went up for NPDES. He's asking about line item number 97
Yes,
for the permit, for the NPDES permit with Solid Waste Authority, or,
that's South Florida.
is it South Florida Water Management District?
Yes, it is.
That's what you did.
Okay, South Florida Water Management District. It's the permit fee.
Okay.
They've gone up, so you
It's
have to
once a
pay more.
year, we have to pay a permit fee, and if they increase it, you don't know until it hits you. They hadn't gone up in a while, though, I think. But I thought it was closer to $5,000, that the permit fee usually ran. We just didn't budget enough for it last year.
All right,
Mhm.
I'm still may come back to that, but I'm gonna just put a pin on that right now. We're gonna go forward. Belabor, so let's keep it moving, but.
We can confirm it. He wants to make sure that we have enough money for this permit for NPDES, South Florida Water Management District,
Okay.
so we can contact them.
That's, one thing about South Florida Water Management District, they don't play.
All right. On the solid waste and recycling, we're not anticipating that to go up much, but we are anticipating using some tipping fees this year. So we did include that a little bit. Now, that has changed since the last workshop. It's come down because a little bit further investigation. Howard did some research online. We feel good that it'll still be under 10,000 total. All right. Dropping down to Public Works. Salaries. We do have a significant increase there. That's because we've added a full-time position, and we're talking about the 4% for our other two full-time positions that are currently paid out of that. Okay?
How many positions are reflected total for that line?
I'm sorry?
How many positions all total for 107?
3.
3?
3 full-time. And we did consolidate, we did have a part-time position there, so we took the part-time recreation person, one of the part-time recreation people, and the part-time public works person. We merged those into a full-time position. And of course, we're showing the increase in health insurance that we're anticipating, plus throwing another full-timer in there. That does cost.
Alrighty, and just quickly, so we have our Public Works Director. Okay,
It's utilities and public works combined.
Paid out of that line item.
right, and then our 2 full-time employees there. Okay,
3 positions full-time.
3 total.
mhm. Okay. Alrighty, and so the proposal, and we'll get back to that one. So the proposed, and just for conversation at this point, the person who will be at this community center activity person, that's not here. This
That's
is,
not there.
okay.
That's
So, under Parks and Recs, okay. Okay.
On line 123, that amount, that was the increase I talked about when we were getting started. 40,000. We're on a 3-year rotation with our drain cleaning. We go one section each year for 3 years. On the 4th year, we take it off. We'll start the process again this coming year, and that's per Vancott. So that's 40,000. That would be the Hill Avenue area that we're starting back on next year. Okay. We show a little increase in fuel. And really, that's it for Public Works.
Why are we showing an increase in fuel?
Cost of fuel.
So it's cost of fuel or usage of fuel?
If you use it, you gotta buy more.
Okay, on page 4, street maintenance.
Ken, before you go on that one, go to 349. I just seen it on here about the lobbyist. Sorry. I was gonna ask you something about the lobbyist. It's on item number 349.
Think about it, just stop me.
Yeah.
Okay, under street maintenance, you have your street lights. We're keeping that the same. Even though the bill is going up, we haven't used as much this year as we anticipated. So, we'll keep that the same and kind of monitor that. Street signs, always need to replace the signs and poles periodically. We'll keep that the same. Street repair and 45th Street Australian beautification. So what we have there is 40,000 for street repair like we have this year. Okay, and then 25,000 if council wants to take up some type of beautification effort on either or both 45th Street and Australian. So that's why
How much?
that's there.
25,000.
How much?
25,000.
25.
Can we use that 25 on, since we're talking about beautification of corridors, whether the corridors are Australian 45th? I've been here since '95. I would love to see those medium pressure wash and clean.
Yeah, I mean, that could
They are terrible. They're dark, the moldy algae, whatever,
Australian and 45th.
and weedy. So if those 25,000 sure would go to good use, so that would be a noble moment. I'm not saying vegetation, but at least, pressure washing, because it looks outdated when Meredith is doing the upgrade, because the county required Meredith to make those turn lanes. You got a mismatch. You got newly concreted medium with touching existing concrete medium, and it's like full of algae, so dark black, so pressure wash would be a nice thing, clean it up, or paint it, however way to do it. Just saying.
You could use some of that money for that?
Yes, sir.
Absolutely. Capital outlay, infrastructure, we had it in for this year, it's probably gonna happen next year, and that is the paving for, Mangonia Hills subdivision,
Okay.
all the streets there.
Well,
Thank you.
what was it? Subdivision.
So that's what that amount represents. We are getting the pricing done now. It probably will be less than that 190 that you're seeing, but we'll wait and see. The SBA loans, I think that's the Hill Avenue project. And then we come down to Parks and Recreation. So the salary for the program coordinator, event activity coordinator is 45 of that, 57 would be that person. And then the other 12,000 would be your community center attendant that we have now. So that's where you're paying that.
So 45 would be the activity? I mean,
Correct. Correct, 45.
Right. And now, you always hear me say I defer to people who know more than I know, and Parks and Recreation is your expertise, and so I do defer. In the context of what we're looking to use that position for, do we want to call that person a program coordinator? And I'm saying that because I'm enamored, not enamored, but inundated with titles, you know, right, in terms of just what I see all the time, and then people say, well, yeah, you know, but I'm, you know, as opposed to the cook, I'm the chef, right? The culinary director, and so with that, you know how that runs. People want compensation for the titles. So what, in terms of program coordinator, 45 is where you find it, or is that, do we need to call it something else?
I think for the 45, we're going to get somebody that needs a job outside of just out of college.
Mm-hmm.
Probably keep them a couple of years.
Mm-hmm.
Those career fields.
Okay, righty. So do we want to bump the title down then to maybe activity coordinator? I mean, I see that when I'm in like in daycare centers and all of that, and or something. And
Yeah, their job will be the same. So anything as
right.
far as a title.
Okay. And is the 45?
I'm sorry, I caught a few mistakes on this position. I failed to include this position as a full-time position, therefore they're offered benefits. I didn't put the health and dental.
Okay.
I did
Oh,
dental,
boy.
but I didn't put health in there. I'm so sorry.
Now, we may end up, for that 45, we may end up with some interns serving in that capacity.
Okay. And so just a question to you, and if that is the case, and because again, I'm going to defer once I make my comment. Generally in those kind, like you said, you normally will attract somebody who's, hey, just got my bachelor's in recreation and so forth, and so do we want to have the salary at 45? What would be an entry level salary for an activity coordinator? Not that we have to get a hard number tonight. Because now, what we're looking at now, because we haven't budgeted, what I'm hearing, we haven't budgeted the benefit packet yet.
I like that. I'm so sorry.
Yeah, so the bottom number is going to change on us.
Possibly by about 26,000 for full health and dental and vision. The dental is there, but not the long-term disability, life and health. But remember, we did something with the revenue, so we just up that contingency.
Okay.
Possibly.
Right, but as proposed, so the 45 would be for whatever that position is, that full-time position, and then you stated the other 13 would be for the person who opens and closes the center,
Community center.
Yes, it's another 12,000 for the community center attendant.
okay. Yeah, and again, just as I'm writing here, yeah, because like I said, I'd be in those places, and it's like, well, so do y'all help us get raises as well? You know, I'm the so we don't deal with titles. Yeah, because I do all activities and I coordinate and I just talk with the manager. We don't do that. Yeah, that just kind of rang when I saw that because it was funny when I saw this. I'm thinking, have this, yeah, they be fighting out there over titles.
Program recreation assistant or
Okay.
program supervisor or whatnot.
Okay, just you can recommend. Like I said, I defer to you. Okay.
I was just thinking of the health insurance, I'm sorry.
Oh, it's okay.
Oh, okay. So now we have to factor that. Oh boy. So now some numbers are going to change on us.
The bottom lines will still be the same for the revenue versus the expenditures. We just have to find out where to take it from.
Okay.
I'm gonna drop down to 157, that's our toy drive. So the good news about this, the bad news is we typically go over budget. The good news is we typically bring in a lot more revenue than what we spend. So that's something the community has proven over the years. They just can't help but give to. So, so we did bump that up by 1,000 to 12,000. And then on 158, you got the back to school bash, you got the festival, the Heritage Festival, and you've got the gala. Those expenses in a total to be around 25,000. And again, we're expecting to get that back in revenue on sponsorships.
Who's decorating for the gala?
Who's decorating? I believe that would be one of the deputy clerks. And I think that's her expertise. She does that kind of part-time or something, so,
Socially.
yeah.
So we're doing it in-house. It'll be too expensive to go.
I know.
Okay. Anyone want to participate? Just get with Ken and help out, do whatever. So, okay.
We need all of your help.
I'll be here.
Down there on general fund total, that 4,245, that a hard number, is that gonna go up or down, or is it gonna stay the same?
It's gonna basically be the same. We're gonna have to add a little bit to the full-time recreation person as far as the benefits go. So that's gonna go up a little bit. That's pretty, next Tuesday, you'll see a number, unless y'all do something different tonight, you'll see a number that looks pretty close to that.
I know it's just me, because I've been around here a long time. You know, I see these numbers. And I can remember, I mean, it's really unbelievable. It's that people's been telling me for 40 years the town's not gonna be here, not gonna be here, not gonna be
Devil's
here.
a lie.
And I've probably said this before, but, you know, when I see these numbers, I always think back when this town was broke. Broke. The fire department had to pay their bills, had to pay for their police cars, and they didn't have any money. and it was a lot to do with mismanagement. But it's really something to see, it really is.
Wait till we get to the utility fund.
Right. The only other comment I'll add to that is that our proposed budget increased from last year, $587,000. Wow, I never thought I'd see that either. Well, over $500,000 increase in a year's
Let's
time.
give our staff a wonderful round of applause.
Well,
I don't know that we should, because it's $587,000 more. No, I'm just kidding.
Yeah.
I'm just kidding.
When you come along, we had to borrow money to make the bill. You remember that?
Yeah, for borrowing money. This is sustainable. Okay.
Now, remember though, about 300,000 of that just jumped in here on this proposal, because it was 300,000 less at the last workshop. So now that we are not rolling back, that number jumps up, so.
Yeah, we should have put it in the bank, but now we're spending it.
Well, I think it's important in providing the service to the community, so. That's something they've been asking for a long time. When are we gonna see? When are we gonna see? So we need to make sure we've got some programs to let them see.
Right. Now, and I'll say this real quick, and not for conversation tonight, because it probably can't be done anyway, when you may mention benefit to the community. One of the things you heard me talk about, a lot of times, I wish that we could do something for our seniors. I wish we could do something for our seniors, but we can't take public dollars and do it. One of the things that we have a contribution, and I'll have you speak with Ken specifically, so I don't put certain things on the record. We have a contribution. What I would have, at least just me, just one person, I'm not saying that this is what happens, I'm just saying my desire would have been if that could have been sort of split and then put into a separate line item so that we could have done some things. There are seniors whose houses are falling apart, need painting and everything else, and it would have been real nice that, for instance, when we have our festival, and this is just conversation, okay? Like when we have our festival, that we're able to give like $500 vouchers. Not literally a voucher to the person, but sort of a mock voucher, because we need to keep it in-house to actually have their house painted and the yard cleaned and those kind of things, because they're aging and things aren't being done. I've been approached by several seniors, and it breaks my heart. I wish there was something I could do out of my own pocket, but I just don't have the money. Just conversation at this point. Like I said, not for conversation tonight, but I would have liked to have seen that happen. And if it's a possibility, speak with Ken to see if it is a possibility. He'll know what I'm talking about, and if that's a possibility, kind of float it, and if not, then we proceed with what we're doing in terms of how we're going to use it for the festival.
I got a question since you kind of bringing that up, Mr. Mayor. I think about maybe 4 or 5 years ago, I went out to the fairgrounds, and they had like a fair. Everything from pools, everything from painting your house, everything to plumbing, air conditioning, et cetera, and it was for the public. You didn't have to pay. All you had to do was park out of the fairgrounds, go in there. So I'm thinking, maybe somewhere in the very near future, maybe we could have a group comes here in our house and offer that to the citizens to improve everything from sprinkler system this thing had. And so I think that would be doable, but it's going to take some planning, but I'm kind of throwing that seed out there. I think that would be something that, because we do have to be careful using public money for private matters, even though I said last time up here on the dais that what the city of West Palm did and other municipalities, they painted houses, they put roofs, but you had to stay in those houses 5, 10 years. You couldn't just move or sell it if the city re-roofed your house or painted your house. So I like that festival thing because they had everything out there, from maintenance, yard, sprinkler system. air conditioned, everything for home improvement. That's where I'm trying to get out. So that might be something that we can pull. You know, we got this festival coming up. I'd love to see vendors come here and invest in our town. So that's something I'm throwing out there.
Well, certainly, and I see your hand, Vice Mayor. I'll hit that real quick, just in case you had something different. And you're right, and in fact, we've had organizations come into town and have actually done things at people's homes. I don't, that, after COVID hit, a lot of things just disappeared, so I don't know if they're still out there, but we can research. But specifically, let's just say that I wanted to give $5,000 to the town, right? I could designate how I want that spent.
Okay.
As a private person, I could, no, but I don't want to go into the general fund, I want specifically for this to happen, right? And we don't have a line item necessarily, but a line item can be created. That whatever you want to call it, community, no, I can't use that because that already has a community assistance, senior assistance program or something like that, so that for accounting purposes, it's segregated and they know what happens and how it, correct me if I'm misstating from a bookkeeper standpoint. But it would be a separate line item that I can specifically say, no, I want my $5,000 spent like this, right? And that happens because I'm the person donating and I'm dictating how I want it spent. So what I'm saying now specifically in the here and now is that there has been contributions made for our festival. And a lot of times in our festivals, like for instance, our Back to School Bash, right? We took donated monies and gave to who? Citizens. Right? We have raffles, and we take monies donated to us, and we give it to who? Citizens, right? So it's not really anything else other than it's even more targeted, that, no, this is for assisting our seniors and sort of doing a little cosmetic things with their home. So I just like to see it happen, sort of. Again, it just breaks my heart, that when you get a call, it's like, go and you take pictures and you try and call around and it's just nothing you can do, because of limited funds. But if we had a fund, then we sort of know. But again, conversation for outside of here.
Well, that kind of hits on what I was trying to ask about the last time we were talking about services to individual needs in our community. So I definitely want to see that. I do also know that there are county funds that are available in the Department of Senior Services that we need to tap into whatever they can offer. We can pass those application process information on to our seniors to get whatever funding is available. Because I remember when I worked for county services, there were services specifically for seniors, dollars that were in the county for seniors, and application processes were not difficult, but they had to be applied for.
And you're right, and now, just in terms of trying to assist, they want your firstborn, they want your eye tooth, then it takes on and on and on and on and on and on. So and you're right, previously, presently, it's a laborious process. People have immediate needs, and 2, 3, 4, 5 months, you're still a decision yet? You're supposed to dispose of the application in 45 days. It's been 5 months. What's going on? So that's happening a lot. So,
but I know there are different funding bases that you could look at that have more lenient and more rigid application processes. Because I remember doing an application for the county for housing restoration, and I got all my facts and figures in place and took it back down there, and they said, "Oh, we ran out of funds last week."
Yeah, and I don't want to be dependent on them.
I'm like, last week.
Yeah.
Here I went through all of this to get all the everything order that they asked for in that application process. So that was very disheartening. But I know that there are some services that not with great amounts, but they can provide minimum support, and the application is not a scrutiny.
Okay. So I'll speak specifically with Ken, and then you guys give Ken a call so that we offline and just if it's something to be considered. If it's not, it's not. Okay, but just an idea. Okay.
Okay. As it relates to housing, though, I think most of you, it's in yesterday's Palm Beach Post, and I think you've been briefed on this a little bit already. The county's doing a bond referendum this November. I think the amount is something like $200 million for housing. Now, most of that's going to be new affordable housing. But I'm sure a percentage of that has to be for restoration or whatnot. So just something to keep in mind there too. I'm curious to see what that looks like. So,
Yeah, I did hear about that.
Yeah, well,
Okay, alrighty, so.
all right. Anything else on the general fund? All right. Do y'all have your utility fund?
Yeah. The next page.
while y'all are flipping pages, I'm gonna take a quick pause. I had some coffee.
And one.
And water. While y'all flipping through.
Alrighty.
I do have it, I'm sorry.
You have it? Okay, just for the record, Councilman Smith has stepped away from the dance for a moment.
Anyone has a chocolate and not a white chocolate?
Not a white chocolate.
I'm sorry?
You have a chocolate?
Excuse me.
Thanks for sharing, though.
Oh, that's big generous.
Okay, alrighty.
All right.
Would you like
time.
some crackers?
Yes, please.
And I'll remind everyone again, I don't sound that great. I feel a lot better than what I sound.
No, you're fine.
Fully vaccinated and did take 2 COVID tests
Mhm.
since Wednesday, and so I'm negative. Uh, On your utility fund, do you have, everyone have that? Okay. So this is simpler, but there is a significant amount of money involved here, and some of it is coming from our wonderful governments. So I'll just kind of go through this. On the revenue side, we haven't changed much. That line 2, we will start seeing this year some of our repayment on the sewer infrastructure project. So that will be coming in this year. We thought maybe we might be seeing some of that this year, but that wasn't the case, so definitely this coming year. All right. I think the meters, as we start to really
Thank you.
get into putting meters down for the Meritage project, we'll see that number hold up as well. All right. Going to line 6, and again, this is revenue. 345,000 budgeted for water service. We budgeted 324 this year. We're going to exceed that. And the increased amount is your new units. We didn't do a 1% this year, or at least so far we haven't suggested that, but the 345, that should hold up easily. The fire line revenue, we kept it at 81,000, even though we're at 83 already. Sewer, this number will hold up. As you can see, the 681 that we budgeted this year, we've already exceeded by 20,000, and it's going to be close to 100,000 before the end of the fiscal year.
With the new
So-
projects, yeah.
So we did increase that, and that's without doing an increase in anything. If you, I want to drop all the way down to line 16, transfer amount. That is your ARPA money. I don't anticipate that we're going to spend all of it this year. Your ARPA money is $1 million, $1,060,000. $1,060,000, I believe that's correct. So just over $1 million. Council has indicated in the past 2 budget cycles that you would like to see that spent for a new well, as recommended by our engineer, David Stambaugh. Money that's potentially left over could be to rehab a new well. We can also do a pretty intensive valve program, which we need desperately. Right now, when we have a big water leak in town, we shut off the water, everybody loses water. A valve would help us isolate the leak, and not everyone would have to lose their service. So that's going to run, somewhere between, probably 50 to 75,000. Okay. We're also investigating the idea in this same line item that we're going to put a new water line down on Boardman when we do the sewer infrastructure, which is part of the next line item. Everyone remembers we got 1.5 million. Well, we haven't received it. It is reimbursable. Anticipating that we won't be able to pull that off. We do have 3 years to spend it, not just 1 or 2. So that's your revenue side, and that's pretty straightforward. We do have a little contingency money in there. On the water department.
Okay, before we go there,
Yes, sir.
okay, just for clarity, let's go to line 16, transfer account. Right, in the comment section you have it, it's crossed out, but now you have 650 budgeted.
That's a mistake. That is 650.
Okay, alrighty, and that's for that purpose, for the wells and distribution?
Right.
Okay.
ARPA funding for wells and for water distribution, which is the valves and the water line.
Okay, alrighty, so that remains.
That remains. That's
Okay.
my mistake. I crossed that out somewhere.
Oh, and I just want to be clear because it gave the indication then we're taking that 650 and transferring it down to line 17. Because we're not doing that now for line 17, that 750 is out of that 1.5 million. That's what we're
Correct.
budgeting toward this fiscal year.
Yes.
And there's a balance left that we're carrying over to some other year.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. We have 3 years to spend the 1.5.
Okay, thanks.
All right. Water department, we're anticipating our sampling and testing going up. That 90,000, that's an error. That's a miscoding. That really should be distributed probably to line, well, we'll just have to straighten that out. We didn't spend 90,000 for sampling and testing. I can promise you that. But we will have an increase. And we're saying 33. This is on the expenditure side again. We are showing an increase for our electric service at our wells from 22 to 27. Everything costs more now. So for our water lines and meter install and all of that, we're going from 24,000 to 30,000. Printing, I think we probably have spent money out of that line item, but that would be 1,000 as well. Operating supplies, that chlorine bleach, that is going up significantly. So I feel safe with that 45,000. Dues and subscriptions, same thing. Education and travel, we have that in there. And then capital outlay, you had your revenue for ARPA, now you've got your expenditure. Showing it there. Any questions on the water department?
I'm gonna go back on one thing. You kind of talked about, you talked about water lines on Boardman. Before we get, and I know we kind of went down, but can you kind of explain it a little better? What water lines on Boardman you were kind of talking about?
So,
Yeah, but I kind of stopped. Yes, go ahead.
north side, getting a little bit closer to West Place.
Yes, sir.
Starting on that corner and going down. People like Tom Kelly,
Yes, sir.
all the way down to where Lisa Davis and points are at.
So does this line is, need to be replaced, or are we putting a new line in? That's a new line, totally new line that's got to go in. Okay.
Sewer department. Contracted services, we've left the same. Permits and fees, we've left the same. Electricity, we're anticipating spending more there. Sewer disposal, this is what we're paying our friends up north. That'll be the same. There's not going to be an increase for this fiscal year. Repairs and maintenance to the lift stations, we've left it the same, even though we've spent $22,000 this year. And pump supplies for the lift station, we are increasing that to $8,000 per Roosevelt's request. So that's the sewer side. Any questions there?
While we're on that Boardman, you're talking about water, no sewer? Talking about water only, no sewer?
So the idea would be threefold. Water and sewer to the same location, and at the same time we get to repave that road.
That's what I was saying, it's gonna dig it up twice if you're doing one. You do it once and do both.
Questions on sewer? Okay. And if you flip over to page 2, this is the utility department. And the utility department, that handles your salaries, professional services, those kind of things. So, salaries, 1 full-time in that department, 1 full-time. That's the technician, Mr. Sweeting, Fred. Today's his birthday. And of course, we did factor in, I believe, Sherry, we factored in 4% on that one. Okay. And we did factor in the increase to the health insurance and all of that as well. Okay.
That line you're showing a lower budgeting figure?
Explain that one.
Can you repeat that?
The lower amount on line 36.
Mhm.
The lower amount?
Yes, it says 115,000 is the present budget.
Well, one thing,
Proposed budget.
if one thing I do know is that when we started out this year, we had a trainee who was doing half at the water plant and half code enforcement. So I know that has been backed out of there.
Correct.
Okay,
So that would have been about 20,000.
okay.
Mhm.
Gotcha. Mhm. Yeah, because that put him into a full-time position. Okay, gotcha.
Line 47, engineering services. So we are anticipating a lot of work for our engineering firm because of the projects that we have coming up. So we will be completing, he's working on the distribution part right now that council authorized, starting back in the workshop we had in May, the 16,000 version. There's another 50,000 that covers the entire water system master plan, which is needed. And this really, when we talk about water capacity and the need at the Highlight property, once that's developed, that study is critical before we can do anything.
Ken,
Yes, sir.
just before we go on, and I'll try and save some time, if I may, Director Howard, if you can add up the numbers for our expenses for this particular department, for this sheet, because I'm actually getting 2695058. And if you can do that, and that way we can continue.
What number did you get?
I'm getting 2,695,058 for the total, right, for total expenses. I may have missed something, so, but I know it won't hold us up, so. Okay, oh, thanks, I appreciate you. Allow me to have him do that. No, thanks.
Very good.
Okay.
And you do see on line 50, we do have part of our lobbyist that comes out of utilities, contracted services. We've increased that significantly because of the security cameras and everything that's involved over there, and we do need good security at the water plant. And then the repairs and maintenance items. No increases, even though we haven't spent a tremendous amount, but it's there if we need it.
Okay, you were referring to line 56?
56.
I'm sorry, what line? You said no expenditures?
Oh, I'm sorry, the maintenance line items, vehicle maintenance, and 57 and 58.
Oh, okay.
We didn't increase it, even though we haven't, and we didn't lower it, even though we haven't spent a great deal. It's just, it's good to have that when you need it, for sure.
Okay.
Fuel, we left the same. We haven't spent as much. It looks like that a lot of our fuel, because we have departments that overlap with each other between utility and public works, that quite a bit of that was charged to like public works. You know, so we left that amount the same. And we did put 5,000 in capital outlay, small equipment, nothing particular in mind. If we need to rent a generator, just as an example, on short notice, we'll have some money there to do that. Any questions? And I think Howard is adding up our stuff.
Any questions?
While you adding up, I keep going back to that, the water line. Connell jumped on it too,
Correct.
on the new water line with Connell. So, we've had much conversation about it. I guess the thing with the new water line, we can at least start the sewer project, well, hook up, because most of the residents down there, I believe it go back and forth, and she's no longer a resident, Polly Willis. That was the big elephant in the room. We didn't have water lines in there. People like run up wells, so she didn't have commercial sewer. And that was one of her. She would come to a lot of meetings. She's moved on to another city, still in Florida, but so now we're, I guess, posturing to actually put in a water line at some point, engineer to get it drawn up, and then eventually, if I'm hearing this right, tie those residents that's going to the western side of Lake Shore towards West Place. Eventually, we'll tie them in, those residents, into commercial system and get them off of septic. So that's kind of where that's going. And I didn't ask costs. I don't really want to ask that because the backhoe hasn't came, the ground has been tore up. But I just wanted to get some clarity on that. So.
And please tell your neighbors and friends over there.
Oh, not
When we
really.
do the sewer line, we are going to put in some swells, so they won't be so surprised this time.
I'm so glad that we have such a wonderful staff over here and managers. So I don't have to bother with that. I'm tired of putting on my football helmet. and shoulder pads.
Something about when we tell them, doesn't resonate.
God bless you.
Okay,
Oh, Lord.
On the amount was,
That's correct.
okay.
this
So,
is
let-
correct.
okay, so let's do this, just because, again, I may have missed something. But what we're looking at in terms of the document, and we're looking at $2,745,058 for our revenue, correct? Page 1 of the utility. Okay, now if I were to add up the totals for each of the departments, and let's do that. We have for the water department, 795,300. Okay. Then for our sewer department, we have a budgeted amount of 1,512,700. And we go to page 2. We have our utility department total, 387,058. And when I add that up, I come up with 26, again, maybe I missed something, 2695. Right, even before I do that, however, because the contingency itself, if I were to add the 50,000 to it, won't bring me up to what I'm seeing. So I'll go ahead and we'll add the 50,000 to that as well. And so we come up with how much? Let me just do here. Okay, it's 2745. Okay.
That's correct.
Okay,
I
right.
manually added it.
Okay, I'm seeing. Okay, now okay, I got it here. I hit a wrong key. Now, so my question is that if indeed when we look at our revenue, which is the 27,045 amount, then we're budgeting 50,000 from our contingency for what? Because if indeed the amount that we have on the proposed budget is 26,95,058, which is less than the revenue, but we're budgeting contingency for. Right, because if our income exceeds our debt, why are we budgeting contingency would be the question at this point then.
Emergency contingency, or transfer of anything that you have to pay out under expenditure. That's usually what you do with contingency.
Okay,
So the 50,000 contingency is because number one, it's a utility plant, anything can happen, and it's an expenditure. That balances the budget for your revenue. So the 2,745,058 is your revenue, and then your $50,000 in the black, which goes to contingency to balance the budget. I mean, you could put the contingency somewhere else, but you shouldn't have to. If you have an emergency, you could always use your contingency.
okay. Righty, just need an explanation as to why we're doing it that way, because I'm always looking to move things to the bank, but, okay, I understand. Things happen, so. I just wanted to see what the explanation was. Okay. All righty. Okay, any other questions?
Nothing but good night. Goodbye.
No, we wanted to finish so that so that when we come again, we're done, so.
Now for our capital improvement budget. No, I'm just kidding.
Okay, any other questions or comments?
We have a few things to clean up. We'll get that out quickly. And then,
Don't forget on Tuesday, which Councilwoman Buchanan Webb will not be here, the state law requires that you have 5 of you, and then you have to have 4 if she's not going to be here. You have to be here, and you have to be on time twice a year. That's the first budget hearing and the final budget hearing. They are not workshops, they are hearings, and they are recorded live, of course, now, but even more so, they're recorded in the state trim records.
And I thought all 5 had to be here, which means Councilwoman has to cancel her trip.
You bet, yes.
Yeah, okay. All righty, I was like, anything else?
No, sir. Thank you
I
all.
so move we Dubai, so move we adjourn.
Okay.
Oh, my
Let's see,
God.
so
That's
four.
talent.
so-
That's talent.
Second? Oh, I didn't hear a second, is what I'm saying.
Second.
Okay, it's been properly moved in second. All in favor, aye?
Aye.
Pose same sign. Well, thanks so much. We'll see you next Tuesday.
I can be reached via WhatsApp or email if anyone really needs me.
No, we're gonna have to
However,
recalculate this budget.
Yeah, I'm so.
Yeah.
Oh, so really quick, I am so excited.